Good morning. It is a beautiful day here in North Carolina, and today I'm going to talk about the 4 modes on your camera and which one you should be using on your camera to take wildlife photography. So come along and enjoy this adventure. Well, there are 4 modes on your camera. There is aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, and program automatic on your camera. Aperture priority is that you adjust the aperture and the camera adjusts the shutter for a properly exposed image. With shutter priority, it's just the opposite. You adjust the shutter and the camera adjusts the aperture for a properly exposed image. Manual mode means that you adjust both the shutter and the aperture, and if the picture is properly exposed, it's on you. And automatic is just the opposite of that. The camera adjusts everything, and the only thing you do is push the button, and you get a properly exposed image. Now, cameras come with different, like sports mode, landscape mode, flower mode, people mode, and these are just different versions of automatic. So I'm going to talk about which ones I use and why I use them. I think it's important to define that. Before I go into modes of camera, I need to talk about a very important thing, a properly exposed image. Now, a definition of a properly exposed image is that your grayscale is gray. That doesn't mean anything to you and me, because there's no way that we can tell in the field if our grayscales are perfect. So the camera does help us a lot when it comes to taking pictures, but we also have to think about what image we want to achieve. So if I'm photographing flying birds, my goal is to stop the action of that bird flying. So I want to be shooting at a shutter speed of either 1/3000th of a second to 1/4000th of a second, depending on how fast these birds are flying. So that means that I have to have a high ISO and I have to have a very shallow field of focus, or have the aperture opened all the way, either to f/5.6 or even lower if my lens will do that. And that's how I achieve those fast shutter speeds. Now, if I'm shooting landscapes and I want a very deep field of focus, and if I'm shooting on a tripod, I don't care how much the shutter speed is, or I want the shutter speed to be very slow, because let's say I'm taking an image of the sea and I want it very flat, so I want the waves to be kind of washing away, so I want a shutter speed of maybe 10 or 15 seconds. So what I would do in that situation is lower my ISO to 50 or 100. I would shoot with my aperture at f/22, maybe f/18, and I would have my shutter speed around 10 or 15 seconds. And I obviously would have the camera up on a tripod. Use a 2-second timer, hit the shutter button, and the camera would take the picture. So it's very important when we're talking about modes of cameras that it's not just the mode that the camera is, it's what the ISO is in. So there are 4 modes on your camera. Aperture priority is the mode that I use most of the time when I'm photographing wildlife. You adjust the aperture to get the shutter, you adjust the aperture and the ISO to get the shutter speed that you want to take the image. I find it very helpful. I use that for landscapes, I use that for a lot of my photography because I think it's very helpful. Now, with that being said, shutter priority is still a very good option. You adjust the shutter and the ISO to get the properly exposed image, and the camera adjusts the automatic. Now, manual mode is something that I don't encourage, especially new photographers, to use. Manual mode is you adjust everything and the camera just takes the picture. And the problem with that is, and especially with the camera that I'm using to videotape this with, it's very difficult to tell if your image is, if the light meter says it's properly exposed or not. And the last one is program automatic. And I generally encourage people not to use this mode because it takes what I call postcard images. You don't have really detailed images, and you don't have really any options to change. So if you want a certain effect, so if you're taking, like I said before, flying birds, it doesn't know to shoot really fast shutter speed. And if you want to have a very long shutter speed, you can't do any of that with automatic. You just take the pictures as they come. And I think that as you progress and as I progress as a photographer, you want to have more control over what your camera does. So I'm hoping this helped you. If you got anything out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel because that really helps us in the YouTube world. Become a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to keep doing this. My name is Leahy. I want to thank you for watching.